Hi everyone, welcome back to Kimura's Kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make an awesome dish. This is Spicy Miso Ramen. It's a very fun dish to make at home and it's something you can definitely get yourself into. Let's begin. So today we make Spicy Miso Ramen, which is based on a regular miso ramen but with a few tweaks. So I'm going to run through the ingredients as always. I have a little bit of cooking oil. I have soy sauce. I have mirin. I have some sesame oil. I have some shiitake mushrooms, dried mushrooms. You don't have to use these, you can use some ceps or porcini. Then I have bonito flakes. Today I have a special kind of bonito flakes. This unfortunately you can only get in Japan. But this is bonito flakes made from chicken. Now this is really cool. There's only one small region in Japan that makes these. But this is perfect for this dish because it's based on chicken. It's made in the same way as bonito, which is cured, smoked, then shaved bonito flakes. But in this case they made it with chicken, so you get this really umami packed chicken flavor into the bonito. Then I have a little bit of seaweed. This is wakame seaweed. Now this is optional, you don't have to use this. Then I have my miso. For this miso base I'm going to use a miso called Hikari. Hikari is from Nagano, which is one of the best miso producing regions in Japan. So if you do look out for this brand, it's very nice. This is just their regular white miso, but you can use a red one, whichever you like. Then I have some butter. I have some chili oil. This is optional, depends how spicy you want it. Then I have some chili flakes. In this case today I'm using something called shichimi. Shichimi is a group of spices. It's a collection of 7 spices and very common in Japanese cooking. Then I'm going to use this gochujang paste. Now gochujang is actually from Korea, but it's quite popular in Japanese cooking, particularly around Osaka or Kyushu, where they're closer to Korea. It's basically a fermented chili paste made from fermented soybeans with onions and chili and garlic and lots of other things into it. So it has much more flavor than just a straight chili paste. So if you find this, I really recommend you look out for it. It's called gochujang or sometimes kochujang with a K, and it's definitely worth looking for. So then I have some eggs. I have my chicken stock. For chicken stock, today I'm actually using a powdered form, but you can obviously use fresh is best. If you want to make a really good recipe for ramen, for chicken stock, check out my website, kimuraskitchen.com, where I post a recipe of a really good chicken ramen stock. But you can use powder like I am today, or some cubes, or some fresh from the supermarket, whichever you find or prefer. Then I have some garlic, very important ingredient in ramen. Then I have spring onions. As in every video I have spring onions, number 1 Japanese ingredient. But I have the green and the white part. Then I've got a chicken breast. Now for this recipe the breast is best, because I'm going to show you how to make a shortcut version of some grilled barbecue chicken. And it's best with the breast because this way it cooks more evenly and you're going to get a more consistent result. So aside from that, I have my noodles. Today I have some fresh handmade noodles, so you can also make these on my website. There's a recipe for fresh noodles. They're really big difference from fresh noodles to dried noodles. It's like fresh pasta and dried pasta, it's totally different. So if you have the time, especially if it's at the weekend, you've got the time, get onto the website and try to make these noodles because they're really delicious. Okay, so to begin, I'm going to start with my chicken stock. If you bought a chicken stock or made a chicken stock or used some powder or some stock cubes, you want to modify it a little bit so that it gets a bit more of a ramen taste. To do this, I'm going to take some dry shiitake mushrooms, like a nice handful. I'm going to put them in my stock. And I'm going to take a little pinch of seaweed. Today I'm using wakame, but you can use kombu, you can use dulse, you can use lots of different types of seaweed. It's just going to give a little bit more flavor to your stock. Then I'm going to add some garlic. So in this case, I'm going to just smash 2 cloves, just with the back of your knife. No need to peel them or anything, it's just for flavor. We will take them out afterwards, so just smash them up, put them into your stock. And then I've separated the green and the white from my spring onion. So for my onions, I'm going to keep the white part, because this is really good for this particular dish. And the green bit, I'm going to put into my stock. You can just chop it up very roughly and put this directly into the stock. It's going to give it some more flavor again. So now I'm going to take my chicken breast. And for this recipe, the breast is best, because you're going to get more consistent results and it's going to be easier to slice. You can of course make it with thighs or legs if you wish, but then you have to take out the bones and it just makes it a bit more work. So I'm going to take my breast and put it directly into my chicken stock. Then we're going to turn on the heat. Well, I'm out of gas, so if you're using gas, make sure you have gas. Like these are very common, by the way, in Japanese kitchens, and I use them all the time for when I'm doing some street events or something. It just has a little gas cartridge, and it means you can cook really, really fast, really quickly, and it's portable, so you can take it anywhere you want. And I use them for all my cooking classes, for all my demos, just simply because you can take them anywhere. So now my chicken is doing its thing. It's basically, you want to poach the chicken slowly into your stock. So you should have your stock is already made. You're going to bring it up to boiling. Once it's boiling, you're going to turn down the heat and just let it simmer. Not boiling too quickly like you normally do for ramen stock. In this case, you want to simmer it a little bit slower so that the chicken breast doesn't get too dry. If you boil this too fast, it's going to get dry and you won't get a good result. So just put it in, switch down the heat, and just let it cook for around about 10 minutes. Even if it's not completely cooked, that's fine, because we're going to fry it in barbecue sauce afterwards, so it's going to be good anyway. Turn it down low, leave it there while we prepare the rest. So that's my stock, that's the base of your ramen dish. Next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a sauce called a tare. Now tare is basically Japanese or ramen terms, if you like, for the seasoning sauce. Now this is particularly important in ramen because we never season the stock. If you season the stock, it's going to get very salty, or the taste will be imbalanced, or it will split. So it's a bad idea. So we're always going to season it directly into the serving bowl. So we're going to make what's called a tare to make this. Now today I'm making one which is based on miso. So I'm going to take my miso. I'm going to take 60 grams. If you're making for 2 people, I'm going to take 60 grams. Perfect. And I'm going to add to this 20 grams of this gochujang paste. The fermented chili paste. It's from Korea. It's very nice. If you don't have this, you could use a sriracha, for example. But sriracha is very much just chili, so it's much different in taste. Gochujang is much nicer in terms of preparing a ramen dish because it's much rounder in flavor. It's got much more to it. So I got my 60 grams of miso. To this I'm going to add 20 grams of gochujang paste, or chili paste. Now to this mix I'm going to add some soy sauce, because gochujang paste and miso, they're a little sweet on their own. So we want to add a bit of soy sauce to the sauce just to make it really nicely balanced. So I got 60 grams miso, 20 grams gochujang. Now I'm going to add 20 grams of soy sauce. Now you can add to this if you want. You can take 1 clove of garlic, just peel it, and then grate it, or use a garlic crush, and put this into your tare sauce as well. This is going to make it a little bit strong, because we're not actually going to cook the garlic, it's going to be raw garlic. So if you're not so keen on strong garlic taste, then skip this part, but otherwise put this in because it's really nice. So in here I've got miso, chili paste, soy sauce, garlic. Now what you want to do is whisk this together. Now it's very thick, so it takes a little bit of work to mix, but you just want to mix this into a nice smooth paste so it's easy to work with. Now this paste, you can actually keep it for quite a long time. Even if it's got the garlic, you can leave it in the fridge for a week, no problem. So you can make this up ahead and have it if you know you want to eat tons of ramen for the next week. You can make a big recipe of this and make it. If not, you can just skip putting the garlic, and then you can keep this for at least 3 months in the fridge. It will not move. Everything that's in it is fermented. Soy sauce, miso and chili is all fermented. So you can keep it for a very long time, and it's really handy to have on hand when you want to make something quick. So I just mix this into a smooth paste. And you're going to notice it's a nice sort of reddish brown, red kind of brown color. It's really nice. So that's my tare base made. Chicken is on the go in my stock. Now I'm going to make what's called a gyofun. Gyofun is like a powder topping which is very commonly put onto sometimes cooked rice, but mostly on ramen. To make this, I'm going to take my bonito flakes and my chili powder. So just 2 things. Now I'm going to use a thing which is called, in Japanese, this is called a suribachi. Suribachi is like a mortar and pestle basically, but the difference is it's much lighter for one thing, so it's easier to use, but it has little grooves all the way around the side. And this is some smart Japanese people who figured out that if you have the grooves on the side, when you're mixing as in the mortar and pestle movement, you can make powders very, very easily. So you don't have to spend hours smashing things up to get a powder. You just put them in, turn it around, and you get a powder. It's very, very smart. So if not, you can just use a food processor. You can blend this in a normal blender, or you can use a mortar and pestle and take a bit longer. So I'm going to put quite a big handful of my bonito flakes in. You can also buy bonito in powdered form sometimes. If you have a good supermarket, you can get the bonito directly as a powder, which case you don't have to do this. You can just mix the powder with the chili and you already have it. But today I'm going to make a powder from it. So I'm going to take a good pinch of chili powder into here. And then you're going to use something, normally you can use a smaller thing, but I have a nice big rolling pin here. And then you're just going to mix this into a powder from this. You can buy much bigger ones of these, which are a little bit more practical. But small one is handy for when you want to take it with you or move around like I do. Now when you make this, there's different ways you can make it. If you just bought your bonito flakes and are nice and fresh, they're usually quite firm. So it's quite easy to make. If you have a packet of bonito that's been open for a little while, it's a good idea to toast your bonito first. You can put it in the oven at 160 degrees for 5 minutes and toast it first before you make this step. That way your bonito is much easier to make a powder from and you get a little bit more taste. If your bonito is nice and fresh like this one, you can just go straight away and grind it into a paste or powder rather. Again, gyofun is something that you can make. It's usually made with bonito, with fish, but you can make it with some chicken like I'm doing today. You can even make this with dried fish. So you could take some frozen little anchovy fish, which you get often in Thai supermarkets, put them in the oven and dry them out, again 160 degrees for maybe 15 minutes, so they're completely crispy, or even fry them. And then you can grind these into a paste, so you get like a fish powder. This is much stronger, but it's also really good for ramen. So lots of ways you can adapt this gyofun to make different things with it. You can even make a vegetarian version if you want to. Instead of putting bonito, you can take some dried shiitake mushrooms, toast them in the oven, again 160 for around 10 minutes. Toast them in the oven so they're nice and dry. Once they're dry, you can smash them up a bit first, and then put them into your suribachi or mortar and pestle, and mix them with your chili powder, so you get like a mushroom chili base. So this is another option you can do with this. So mine is almost ready. You can also just put this in a blender, much quicker. If you blend it, you can also keep it for a long time. Once you've made your powder, like I'm doing now, you can keep this in a container or like a jar like this. And just keep it on your shelf so it's ready, like a nice seasoning base to add to some steamed rice or some ramen like today. So what you should end up is a really quite salty, umami-packed, spicy chili powder. But it's not too overpowering, it's not too salty, it's not too spicy. It's just a nice rounded taste. That's what you're looking for when you make this. So I'm going to keep grinding just a little bit more. And I'm going to add a little bit more chili. Now if you're using chili powder, you can use one like I'm using today called shichimi. Now, shichimi is like 7 spice, so it has chili powder, but it also has citrus zest, as well as sesame seeds and hemp seeds and other things in it. So again, it's got more flavor than just straight chili. So now I have a nice powder from my bonito. So you should end up with a nice powder that you can then sprinkle on top of your ramen, and that's just going to really give it a boost, both with flavor and with a little bit of spice. It's really, really worth doing. So my chicken is still cooking away. If it's floating a bit on the top, just turn your chicken over. You can also spike it with a fork or a chopstick, just to see if it's cooked. So if it comes out pink, then it's not cooked. If it comes out white, then it's cooked. So we can wait another few minutes. So now in the meantime, I'm going to make the aji tamago. Aji tamago is the eggs that you put on top of ramen, and to be honest, is one of the best bits of ramen. These ones I've just cooked and peeled in boiling water for 7 minutes. Now it depends a little on the size of your egg. Sometimes you want to do 6, sometimes you want to do 8. But I would say as a general rule, 7 minutes is perfect. So just boil them, cool them down, peel them. Then I'm going to cut them in half. This is just to speed up the process so it gets a bit quicker. So you should have the yolk inside, which is cooked but still creamy, so it's a little bit soft, but not too runny. Now the common mistake when people make ramen is they cook the eggs a little bit too runny. You want it to be creamy, but not liquid. It shouldn't be spilling out into your ramen. It should be just liquid enough that it's still set, but not too hard that it's hard boiled. So it's somewhere in between. So in this case we're going to cut the eggs in half, and then we're going to add a mixture of half soy sauce and half mirin. That is an easy way to make the recipe. You can also make it with sugar. If you don't have mirin, you can use sugar as well. So I'm just going to measure this directly into my bowl with my eggs. For 2 eggs, if you're using 2 or 3 eggs like I am, you can put 60 grams of each. So 60 grams soy, 60 grams of mirin. And it should be enough to cover everything. And just mix everything around. You can just use a spoon to mix everything around a bit to make sure that the mirin and soy are nicely mixed. Mirin is sweet and the soy sauce is salty, so you want to make sure they're nicely mixed up. And this is going to cure the eggs a little bit so they get a really nice intense flavor. It's perfect for ramen. So we're going to leave our eggs. If you've cut them in half like I have, you can leave them for about 10-15 minutes, then it will be ready. If you leave them whole, then you want to leave them a bit longer. Leave them about half an hour to an hour so they have time to get enough flavor into the eggs. So now I have my seasoning base, my tare, I have my eggs, I've got my noodles, I've got my stock, and I've got my chicken. Now I'm going to make some spring onions. So for this we're just going to slice them very, very thin as you can, and ideally only the white parts. If you have some nice thick spring onions like these ones, this is exactly what you want for this dish. The white part is a little bit more strong in taste, it's a bit more oniony. So in this case, when we're making a heavier flavor like a miso and spice, you want to use the white parts so it's more taste. You can also use a Spanish onion or a white onion instead, like a regular onion. And once you've sliced your onions, you want to make sure you wash these in a little bit of cold water. This is just to make sure everything is separate. And also it will wash away a little bit of the excess onion taste. Sometimes onions can be a little bit too strong, a little bit too much. So you want to wash them first in cold water. Any trimmings or bits of onions you don't like, put them in your stock. They're going to give you some more taste. Now I take my cut onions, I'm going to put them in some cold water. Just give them a little rinse or let them sit there for 10 minutes. Easiest way, just put them in a little bowl with some cold water and just mix them around a bit so they separate. So that's my onions done. So now I'm going to go to my chicken. So my chicken is cooked by now. So I'm going to take this out from my stock. And in my stock I'm going to strain it so there's no more pieces of it. Now you can either pour it through a strainer, or you can just take one of these like a straining sieve and just take everything out. These things are very, very popular in Japan. They're little like strainer spiders, they're called. And they're very, very practical. If you're making small quantities or something, it's really, really good. Because you can actually, it's like a very fine mesh. And you can really get out all the small pieces of it. So it's a good thing to look out for if you can find one of these. So now I've got my stock is strained. I've got my chicken here. I'm going to take off my stock now. I'm going to put on a frying pan. On the other side, I've got a pot full of water. So I'm just going to bring this up to boiling. And this is to cook the noodles. So with my chicken, we're going to measure a little sauce to cook our chicken so we get like a barbecue chicken flavor. Now in this case, you're just going to take some soy sauce. I'm going to take 20 grams of soy sauce. And I'm going to add to this 15 grams of sugar, or basically 1 spoon of sugar. Then you want to add a teaspoon of sesame oil. And that's all you need. Then on the sides I've got a pan heating up. So I'm going to add a little bit of oil into this pan, just over a medium heat. You don't want to have this too hot. If it's too hot, it's going to burn the sauce. So nice medium heat. Then the chicken that we took out. Now ideally you want to use like a fork, or if you have these chopsticks, so you can take out your chicken. And then you're going to slice it to around 1/2 centimeter, so about 1/2 centimeter slices. And this just makes it easy to get a nice caramelization and a nice barbecue taste onto your chicken. So by this point the chicken should already be cooked. If it's still slightly pink, that's okay. You're going to finish cooking it in the pan. But it should be more or less cooked by now. Then we have some nice hot pan of oil. I'm going to turn this down a bit. And I'm going to put my chicken pieces in. Now if they're already cooked, it's going to be very quick. If they're still a little pink, then just cook them all the way until they're no longer pink. So just give them a little flash in a pan with some oil like this. Once you have a little bit of color where everything is nicely cooked, you're going to take that mix that you made with soy sauce, sugar and sesame oil. Just give it a stir because the sugar will stick on the bottom. I'm going to add this directly to the pan. Give it a good stir around, let it boil a bit, because you want this to reduce down to like a honey consistency, so it's like the consistency of a glaze, just to glaze our pork, so we get, chicken, so we get this nice glazed barbecue flavor. Just let it reduce until everything is nice and sticky. Now I said pork a second ago. You could easily make this dish with pork instead of chicken if you want to. You could take some neck of pork. Neck is really good for this dish. Cut it into slices, put it into your stock. Chicken stock is the same, it's fine. Let it cook in your stock. Slice it and do the same thing as I'm doing now with some pork neck. It's also just as good as chicken. So with ramen, ramen is a fast food in Japan. It's a dish which is actually very easy to make at home if you're a little bit organized and you think ahead. If you try to do everything from scratch and everything in one day, it's a little bit tricky because making noodles fresh, they take a good 3-4 hours to make. Making a good chicken stock will take you again another 3-4 hours for cooking. Of course you can do the both at the same time. And then you've got your eggs to cook, there's another 10 minutes. You've got your chicken to cook, there's another 10 minutes. Your garnishes, spring onions, another 10 minutes. So it takes quite a while if you're going to make everything from scratch. But if you have some chicken stock ready, maybe you just make it like I do from some powder. You take it from the freezer that you made earlier. Your noodles, you can freeze them. So you can have a lot of the stuff ready. You can have this tare base in your fridge for about 3 months, so it's ready. You can have the gyofun chili paste, chili powder, made. Again, it will sit there for ages. So then the only thing you have to do on the day is to cook your chicken, to barbecue it like I'm doing now, marinate your eggs, and cut some spring onions. That's it. So you have 3 things to do on the day. If you think ahead, you got your noodles in the freezer, got your stock in the freezer, you got this gyofun on the sides, and your miso in the fridge, then you can make this in 10 minutes. So now my chicken is nicely glazed, perhaps even a little too much. No, actually this is good, it's perfect. So we want to get a nice brown caramelization, so kind of like a chicken teriyaki. That's exactly what you want. Nice barbecue taste. So I'm just going to pour these on the side. Now I'm going to take my chicken stock and I'm going to put it back onto heat. So when you make ramen, when you're ready, if you've got everything in front of you, you want to organize it a little bit so it goes quite fast. When you make fresh noodles like these, they cook in about 20 to 30 seconds, so it's very, very quick. So you want to make sure that your chicken stock is nice and hot, boiling hot, before you begin to put your dish together, or even to begin to cook your noodles. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put everything in front of me. So I have my glazed chicken, I got my spring onions, I got my tare base, so my chili and miso, I've got my marinated eggs, and I've got my gyofun fish and chili powder. So as an option you can also add some chili oil if you want to, but this is optional, depends if you want it really spicy or not. Then I have my chicken stock cooking, I've got some water on the go, and I've got my noodles, so everything is ready. So next up you want to make sure you have a whisk ready on the side, and ideally you want something like a ramen basket like this. This is a noodle basket. You don't have to use this, you could take a regular sieve and bend it, but you need to have a handle and a space so you can shake your noodles because they cook so fast. We want to lift them up and drain them very, very quick. So I've got my noodle basket and my ramen bowl, and now I have a whisk ready to go, same one I used earlier. Now when you cook ramen noodles, you're going to put the basket into the water first. Into my chicken stock. I'm going to finish this dish with a little bit of butter. Now this might sound unusual for a Japanese recipe to be using butter, but in Hokkaido, where this dish is actually from, they use a lot of butter in ramen, or as a topping for ramen. So you want to take, if you're doing for 2 people, I would take about 40 grams of butter, a nice big slab of butter. Put this into your stock and let this boil so it emulsifies, so you get a nice thick rich taste from your stock. Now this is something which will give you a little bit more oomph to your ramen. It's a bit more powerful. Don't have to do this, of course. And if your chicken stock is very fatty already, probably you want to skip this. But if you're using like a ready-made stock like I am today, in order to give it a bit more richness, just chuck a piece of butter in there. It's going to give you much better result. So water boiling, baskets in, stock's boiling, and butter's in. Now I have my bowl. I'm going to take, for one portion, you want around 40 grams of your tare base. Now this is basically equates to one nice big spoon like this. That's roughly 40 grams. Maybe a spoon and a half, tiny bit more. So I've got my tare in the bottom of my bowl. This is very important. You never put this into the boiling stock. For one thing, when we're making a stock with miso like this, if you add miso and you boil miso, it loses all its flavor and all its nutrients, all the benefits. It's very good for your body, very good for your digestion and your stomach. So if you put it into the boiling, you kill all your flavor and all your benefits. So never do that. Put it directly into the bowl. Then you want to take a nice big ladle. So now the timing is important. So I've got my tare in my bowl, my toppings in front of me, my stock boiling, and I want all this ready before I take my noodles. Now I'm going to take my noodles. You want to make sure you fluff them out a bit so they don't stick. They're going to go directly into my basket. This takes about 20 to 30 seconds. As soon as they're in the basket, shake them around with some chopsticks. This is just to spread them out so they don't stick together. When they're fresh, sometimes you get lumps, so they will stick a little bit. So you want to use the chopsticks just to separate them to make sure they don't stick. And during the time where they cook, I'm going to take my chicken stock. Now my butter is nicely emulsified into it. Then you want to take 2 nice big ladles. Well, this is equivalent to 400 mils. If you're making, you want about 400 mils of stock and 40 grams of tare. That's approximate guide for how to make any type of ramen, basically. Then I've got my whisk from my tare from earlier. I'm going to whisk everything together. Now this is important because if you don't do this, your tare will just stick on the bottom and you'll end up with like a big paste on the bottom, which is super spicy, and the broth has no seasoning. So make sure you whisk everything together. So now it smells really good. I'm going to check on my noodles. I need a little bit longer. So 10 more seconds on my noodles. Now they're ready, so I'm going to lift them up. You can see there's a lot of water coming off them first. Leave them up and now shake them. And this is why you want a nice deep basket, so you have something where you can really shake them. You can really drain off that water. The last thing you want to do is take the water from your pot of water and pour it into your ramen, because then you dilute all your flavor. So make sure you really spend a minute just to shake them. You can't really shake them too much, so just rather overdo this than underdo it. So now they're ready. I'm going to pour them into my bowl. Just gently slide them in. Once you have your ramen noodles into your bowl, you want to make sure that you lift them up with some chopsticks like this, just to make sure that they don't sit and clump together in the middle. You want to make sure they're all spread all the way to the sides, nice and everywhere. And now we can go with our toppings. So for this dish, it's going to be spicy miso ramen. It's going to have some very, very simple toppings. So I just have my spicy miso base, which is giving me all my seasoning. And now I'm just going to take a few pieces of my barbecue chicken breast. So I got my barbecue chicken now into my ramen, just sitting on the top. And I've got my spring onions, so my nice white part of the spring onions. And you can present this however you like, but it's nice to kind of group things together. So your chicken all together, your onions together. Now I'm going to take my eggs. So my eggs are marinated now for around about 10 minutes. And then I'm going to add my gyofun powder on the top. Now the gyofun is a really important part of this dish. It really makes the difference because it gives a little bit more umami and it gives a bit more depth and richness, and it also gives a bit more chili, so it's well worth making. And then last thing, I'm going to add a tiny bit of my chili oil. You don't have to, but it's optional. And if you have them, it's unlikely, but if you do, you can add these little chili strands, which you can get. These are often found in Japanese restaurants. It's just a dried chili that's been shredded. Again, it's optional. And now we have a delicious bowl of spicy miso ramen. I'm going to bring this up. So here we have spicy miso ramen, nice and easy with some chicken stock, my nice base made from miso, chili paste, some barbecued chicken, the gyofun powder, and my spring onions and eggs. So not so many toppings, but a really tasty dish. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a nice bowl of ramen like I do, ready to enjoy. And I'll see you again next time. Thanks for today.